So I already recorded this entire video about Francis Ngannou, Tyson Fury's rematch clause and all these other things that are in this. But in my research after doing the video, before I posted, just to make sure that I had everything right, I found out the terms of the contract. And guess what? You know what I stumbled on also when I was looking into the rematch? I stumbled on why this fight was actually rigged from the beginning. The decision, okay? Now, some people might think that Tyson Fury actually won the fight. Doesn't matter, because either way, that decision was going to go in the direction of Tyson Fury, and I'm going to tell you why right now. And then you're going to get to watch this whole show, okay? Tyson Fury, if Francis Ngannou beat him, had to give Francis an immediate rematch. Had to. Contractually had to. If Francis Ngannou loses the fight, no matter what, Tyson Fury has the chance to do the rematch if he wants to, but if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. And he already has a fight booked against Usyk in December, which now they're going to do in February, and there are a lot of terms related to that fight which play into this now. And so when you consider that that fight is happening in Saudi Arabia, the same promoters, same venue, same everything, and you have a close decision that everyone thinks Francis won, and oh, oopsie, it's a 1-point split decision, and now Tyson Fury doesn't have to rematch Francis. Think on that for a second, and then wait until you hear the other details throughout this video. Buckle up. So Francis Ngannou is not getting a Tyson Fury rematch, and we know that as of today. We also know that Dana White is happy for Francis Ngannou. He is not upset about the outcome, and I'll tell you how we know that and why I'm going to say, like, I don't know. You know, if that was true, I think there would be a specific way that we would know that has not happened. Thus, I'm just going to throw a question mark on that. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the pay-per-view performance, which apparently was very bad, and why that is totally irrelevant as it remains, as we move forward from Saturday night. And I'm going to give you specific examples that are inarguable. And then we're going to talk about whether or not Francis Ngannou would beat Jon Jones, because the number one and number two haterade comments that I got on the last couple Francis Ngannou videos have been A, Jon Jones would crush Francis Ngannou, and B, the pay-per-view bombed, Francis is not a draw. And so I'm going to stick a stake through both of those arguments right now. You know, just because an argument is bad doesn't mean that the exact opposite is true either. It's just that argument is terrible, and we're going to talk about why. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about, and we're going to start with the pay-per-view numbers, because that's the most interesting one to me, and then we're going to go into the no rematch for Francis and what that actually means, because that is a direct connection to that topic that we just laid out. All right, so if you have not subscribed to the channel, why don't you go ahead and do that? Do the world a favor, subscribe to the channel, and you will get all this incredible content when it comes out if you ring the bell. I would appreciate it. It's very helpful to the channel, and also if you would like this video, that would be incredible as well. I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Yo Kratom. If you are a bulk daily Kratom user and you want powder, cheapest possible scenario, I use it every day. I use Yo Kratom. I get kilograms for $60. That is never going to be beat in terms of the price per quantity. Give them a look. Yo Kratom. They're a longtime sponsor of this channel, and I love them. All right, so let's talk about the pay-per-view numbers, because those seem to be being used against Francis in a way that is not only, well, it's just irrelevant. You know, like, honestly, it's just irrelevant. It's an irrelevant argument, right? So in the comment section for the videos that I've been doing about Francis, I've been, like I said, been seeing very consistently whenever obviously I've said Francis is a huge draw now. Francis, as of now, is a huge draw. And people's response to that is, are you serious, bro? Their pay-per-view completely bombed. And I'm like, right. And they're like, yeah, it bombed. And I'm like, right. How is that relevant? You said he's a huge draw. Right. You're saying that the pay-per-view bombed. How does that affect what I'm saying? They're all, are you serious? You're saying he's a pay-per-view draw. You're saying that he's a pay-per-view draw. And I'm saying the pay-per-view bombed. And I'm like, okay. So let me ask you a question, dumbbell. Okay? How many pay-per-views would a Nate Diaz-led pay-per-view have sold 3 months before his first Conor McGregor fight? Riddle me that, smart guy. All right, so if they were like Nate Diaz versus fill in the blank person who is not a draw themselves, just as an example, how many pay-per-views do you think that would have sold? Not very many, right? Not very many. And then he fought Conor McGregor, and everybody expected him to lose. And then he strangled Conor McGregor unconscious. Well, sorry, no, Conor tapped, but he strangled Conor McGregor, would have gone unconscious. And then suddenly, I ain't surprised, motherfuckers, he's the biggest pay-per-view draw in the world that's not named Conor McGregor. Just like that. From would sell 0 pay-per-views to one of the biggest draws in the sport. Okay? So, do I need to explain that more? No, but he was fighting Tyson Fury. It's not the same thing. Right, I know. Right. He was fighting Tyson Fury, and before Saturday, he was not a draw, just as Nate Diaz was not a huge draw prior to fighting Conor McGregor. So, now, after the Tyson Fury fight, we're in the scenario of after the Conor McGregor fight. Okay, we're talking about Francis. Francis versus Tyson Fury, of course, was going to bomb. Everybody knew that. There's no one who thought that was going to sell a ton of pay-per-views because everyone thought that they knew the outcome and no one had ever had a big emotional reaction to Francis. Let me ask you this, okay? To all the people who are using that little statistic, or just to people who think that he's not a draw now, because you're wrong for sure, like 100% sure you're wrong. Here's the question that I would ask you. If Francis is not a draw, then how come Eddie Hearn is wanting to do a fight against Anthony Joshua now, when he definitely 100% did not want to do the fight prior to Saturday? You think Eddie Hearn doesn't know the business? You know what I mean? Like, you know the business better than Eddie Hearn. He is trying to put together Rumble in the Jungle 2. Now, for the children that don't know Rumble in the Jungle 1, that's George Foreman against Muhammad Ali, the one where Muhammad Ali did the rope-a-dope. Why is this notable? What would deem it Rumble in the Jungle Part 2 is because that fight was in Africa. That fight was in Africa. And if you really want to get your hair to stand on end, go watch a documentary about Rumble in the Jungle 1 so that you understand what Eddie Hearn is actually saying about what they were chanting as he was coming out, what they were chanting throughout the fight, and understand what Rumble in the Jungle 2 would be like for Francis Ngannou to make his Africa debut against Anthony Joshua, and they call it Rumble in the Jungle 2. It will be, I honest to God, might pay whatever ludicrous money it would take to go to that fight, because I don't think there will ever be an experience that would be more like, I can't even imagine, dude. I honestly cannot even imagine what that would be like, okay? So, that is happening. Eddie Hearn definitely knows the business better than you if you're saying that Francis is not a draw, so you're wrong. You're wrong. Oh, really? You just said Tyson Fury's not going to do the rematch. I know. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second, okay? Deontay Wilder now, bam, all of a sudden, obviously he was talking about doing a Francis Ngannou fight before, but now he's really talking about doing a Francis Ngannou fight, potentially PFL, MMA. I actually heard PFL say it would be mixed rules potentially, which would be my exact wish when I started, well, before I even started the channel, which would be a boxing match and MMA gloves against Deontay Wilder against Francis, which I think they would probably be allowed to kick too, if they did mixed rules. And the boxing guys that are weighing in on that particular fight are saying Francis will cripple Deontay's legs, which is accurate. If I'm Deontay and that ends up being what the rule set is, basically kickboxing match with MMA gloves, all I'm practicing all day long is the most ruthless straight punch counter to a leg kick ever. Because his long, straight punches are devastating, Now, Francis has never been rocked. He's never been knocked down. That's one thing I don't even hear people talking about, is the fact that Francis, throughout his entire career, has never been, lit up to where he was on shaky legs. Never. He got hit real hard against Stipe. Nothing. He got tired. He fought Tyson Fury and did not get even buzzed. Nothing. Deontay Wilder is a different animal, though. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, right? Bottom line, he is a draw. He absolutely is a draw. And anybody who knows the business absolutely knows that. The pay-per-view did bomb, but everyone knew that was going to happen. The whole reason they did it is, the whole reason Francis' team wanted to do it and they took not that much money was to do exactly what they did. I mean, it's a lot of money, obviously, 12 million. But that's nothing compared to the contract he's going to get next time, right? And so there's rematch clause language in his contract, like I told you. But as a matter of fact, let's actually look at this really quick. So here's a quote from Francis Ngannou related to his rematch clause. Let's listen to him.
Know exactly how to explain that language, but yes, there's a rematch inside it. For if I win, definitely. If he beats me, that's what I don't know. We'll see how it goes. That's why I have to win this fight. I have to do everything to get that rematch. The second fight would be after the PFL debut, because the PFL fight is somewhere in the beginning of next year. Maybe in February or March of next year. I was talking to Pete Murray about it, and that's the timeline.
Okay, so there you go. So that's the problem, and that is why Francis is having to fight for the rematch. He's not going to get it, at least not in the short term, because the rematch was mandatory if he won, okay? If he won. Now, I know that in the contract it is a Tyson Fury has the ability to exercise the rematch clause if they choose. If Francis wins, it's mandatory. If it goes the way that it went, then it's Tyson Fury's decision on whether or not they want to exercise the rematch clause. Okay, as far as I understand it, that is I haven't seen the contract. That's how I understand it. So, as it were, Tyson Fury has already announced exactly what he's doing next, and here is why we know that there's not going to be a rematch in the short term, is because he's fighting Usyk, and in both contracts, in the Usyk and Tyson Fury fight, both of them have a mandatory rematch clause. So, what that means is that if Usyk beats Fury, he gets an automatic immediate rematch. If Fury beats Usyk, he gets an immediate automatic rematch. I don't know if I said opposites right there, but you guys understand what I'm saying. Both Usyk and Fury have an automatic rematch clause in their contracts. So they already pushed the fight back to February so that, they could give everybody the idea that Tyson Fury was totally unprepared for this Francis Ngannou fight. He's going to be ready this time. For the Usyk fight, he'll be ready. I think he's going to fight just like he did against Francis. I think he's going to beat Usyk. You know what I mean? I think he's going to beat Usyk. I watched Usyk fight in his last one. I didn't see anything that makes me think that he's going to beat Tyson Fury, even the Tyson Fury that we saw on Saturday night. Bottom line. So Francis is on the outside of this thing, and that's going forward as far as we understand. I mean, that's what they've announced. They've already said it, right? Do we expect there to be such an enormous amount of clamoring for a Tyson Fury versus Francis rematch that they have to scrap it? No. But that is where Francis was unprepared on Saturday night. That's the one place where he was unprepared, was knowing that in his contract there was a rematch clause that would be up to Tyson Fury to exercise in the event that they had the outcome that they did, which was an incredibly close fight, which went in the direction of Tyson Fury. So here's what he should have known to do if they would have thought that that was possible. It would have been to get on the microphone and do not say anything other than, if Tyson Fury does not rematch me, he's afraid of me. Usyk, get the fuck out of here, Like, get out of here. Chael said he should have said, something, I don't know if I'm just going to quote it. He said, sit your fat ass down and let the men talk. I was like, that would have been the best promo of all time. It would have been the best promo of all time. And he would have, and that's exactly what would have happened. If Usyk started coming up into the ring and Francis Sami said, what are you doing here? Get your fat ass out of here. And he started cutting a promo about a rematch. That's how the fight business works. He would have gotten it. But he was unprepared. And the reason he was unprepared is because no one in a million years thought there was any chance that this would be the outcome. So it is what it is. He is either going to fight Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua, and that's a great outcome. That's a fantastic outcome. I mean, if Tyson Fury was going to still fight Usyk in December, and then they could have done a rematch in, Q2 of 2024, then you might be able to see an immediate, or at least immediate boxing rematch for Francis, because Francis goes and does his PFL debut in early 2024, and then he'll be ready to fight again in late 2024, and that could have been against Tyson Fury. But since they're pushing the Tyson Fury-Usyk fight back, I can't see how that ends up happening. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be DC saying that Dana White is not upset about the outcome of the Francis Ngannou fight. He's happy for Francis. He's really, really stoked for Francis, and that's what DC is telling the public. And I am not necessarily saying it's not true. I know Dana loves he loves great stories like that. But I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm going to question the validity of that statement. And I'm not saying DC's lying. Maybe that's what Dana said to DC. But here's the thing about that. If Dana really felt that way, don't you think he would say it himself publicly? You think he doesn't know that everyone is waiting on his statement related to Francis? He knows that, dude. Of course he knows that. Dana's the most visible guy in the entire MMA combat sports world. Okay? We see him every single day, right? Well, not every day, but you know what I mean. He's incredibly visible, and everyone knows where Dana stood on this fight. And anybody with a brain knows what I already told you earlier in the fight, which is that as of this moment, Francis just became one of the biggest draws in combat sports with the most wide variety of options for himself. Now, here's what I'm going to say actually about Dana's situation as it relates to how he's going to view this. Now, Conor versus Mayweather is a once-in-a-lifetime crossover fight. That's a fact, okay? There is not going to be a fight that Francis is involved with, most likely, that could ever get close to those numbers, right? But everybody knows that Conor versus Mayweather really was a gimmick fight, okay? That was a gimmick fight, bottom line. Now, Francis obviously completely changed the way that people are going to look at those fights in the future, but Conor versus Mayweather was a gimmick fight, right? Now, what you have is you would have had the heavyweight champion of the world in UFC, and when you talk about Rumble in the Jungle, right, that is an all-time historic boxing match. Dana's a huge boxing guy. He loves boxing. He thinks the business is fucked, but he loves boxing. If he would have backed Francis, what he could be putting together right now is a homecoming for Francis to Africa, Rumble in the Jungle against Anthony Joshua. Will that do the numbers of Mayweather versus McGregor? No. Will it be a historic fight? Yes. There is no possible way that if Francis, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua, and Francis' team do Rumble in the Jungle 2, that Dana is not deeply upset that he's not a part of that. If someone tells me that he's not, I don't believe you. Like, I won't believe you. I can't believe you. I won't. Of course he would want to be a part of that. Putting on big fights is Dana's entire life. The reason the UFC is where it is directly related to the passion and drive that Dana has. And that's the kind of thing that Dana, of course, wants to be a part of, deeply would want to be a part of. Regret has to be, it has to. It's a massive historic fight. And that puts him into Africa the way that they want to go to UFC with Africa. And they lost all three of their African champions. Obviously, Kamaru and Israel Adesanya lost. But candidly, if you're going to say which of them had the best story for a homecoming hero's journey in Africa, it's obviously Francis. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously Francis. So I don't care. I mean, I'm sure that he is happy for Francis, but if you're telling me he's not bitter about it, I don't believe you at all. Let's just go ahead and have a look-see at Francis's career as a heavyweight UFC fighter. So we start here with Luis Barbosa. It's a second-round knockout. That's his first fight. Heavyweight UFC fight. Then he fights Curtis Blaydes. Second-round knockout. Then he fights Bohan Mihajlovic. First-round knockout. Then he fights Anthony Hamilton. First-round submission. Then he fights Andrei Arlovsky. First-round knockout. Then he fights Alistair Overeem. First-round knockout. Then he fights Stipe and loses a 5-round decision. And that is the fight where he got exposed as not having good wrestling, right? So that's his one meaningful loss in UFC. One meaningful loss. And it was because he didn't have wrestling. Well, that's how we know that John Jones would just destroy him, because John Jones's wrestling is so far superior to Francis's. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. That's in January of 2018. Okay? You want to know how long that's going to have been ago? In about, 2 months? 6 years. 6 years ago. 6 years ago. Okay? That's when he switched camps. Okay? Well, he fought one more time against Derek Lewis. That fight was just weird. That fight doesn't even count. He just stood there because he got his brain broken. He had never lost like that before. Got his brain broken, then he got his brain fixed. So those are his 2 losses, and that one was in July of 2018. Okay? So now we get to current state Francis Ngannou. Curtis Blaydes, first round knockout. Cain Velasquez, first round knockout. Journey Dos Santos, first round knockout. Rosenstreich, first round knockout. Wait, what's the combined time of those fights? Let me just see in case you guys can't see them. Actually, let's go up a little bit. So you got Curtis Blades in 45 seconds. Then you got Cain Velasquez in 26 seconds. That's about a minute. Then you got Junior Dos Santos in 1:11. So that's 2.5 minutes, or less than 2.5 minutes. And then you got Rosenstreich in 20 seconds. So it's less than 3 minutes. So you got 4 knockouts over Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and Rosenstreich in less than 2.5 minutes, dude. I'm sorry, less than 3 minutes. 4 guys averaging less than a minute each guy to get back to his title shot. Now, I interviewed Eric Nixick at the time, and I said, I've heard that he's been training wrestling, and he was like, his wrestling is night and day. He likes to wrestle. He's incredible at wrestling, and he's a smashing machine on top. Think about how scary that is. And I was like, I can't wait to see it. No one had seen it, so no one believed it. He fights Stipe, and what does Stipe do? Tries to wrestle him, and how did that go? He got shook off easily. Same guy. Didn't even get close to a takedown. He took him down 100 times in that first fight. Did not get close to taking Francis down. Almost got knocked out a couple times in the first round. Second round, knocked unconscious, starched. Same fighter that he's fighting against, completely different fighter on the Francis side. Then he fights Cyril Gane with a torn MCL. Like, I don't think you can overstate how important that is, that he had a torn MCL. I mean, all of you guys know, I've been kind of, I know more than you guys do about this particular fighter, okay? Francis is the only one on his team that thought this was a good idea for him to take this fight. No one wanted him to take it. No one. He was severely compromised. He trusted the process. He went to the same doctor as Kobe Bryant had to redo his Achilles, and they're like, dude, he cannot fight on this thing. He fights anyway. Everyone's all, God, he didn't even look very good on the feet against Cyril. I'm like, I know. He shouldn't have taken the fight. He's insane. And then how does he win? He wins by grappling. Okay? So, coming back to Jon Jones. Let's just do something here really quick. I feel like I should... actually, do I even need to do this? I was going to do a thing where I look up Jon Jones's fights and I go, hey, how many fights does Jon Jones have at heavyweight? So everything we just did with Francis are all heavyweight fights. Okay? Jon Jones has 1 heavyweight fight. One. And he strangled Cyril Gane. Looked incredible for sure. Grabbed his head, strangled him. What happens if Jon Jones is not able to do what he did to Cyril Gane to Francis Ngannou, when Francis Ngannou 100% knows the only way Jon Jones really has to win is to wrestle him? He's going to get knocked unconscious. Now, I am not saying for sure that Francis wins. What I'm saying is that anybody who thinks they're confident enough to say everyone in the industry knows that Jon Jones is going to work over Francis, what are you talking about? Defend that position, dude. Jon has 1 fight at heavyweight. 1. He beat Cyril Gane, who we know has absolutely no grappling, who is exactly like what Francis was in 2018. None. He has no grappling. None. He didn't even have a grappling coach for that fight, dude. He asked my jiu-jitsu coach to come to France and be his grappling training partner. But Victor Hugo is a world champion that trains here. He couldn't justify going out to France for the money they were going to pay. They didn't have enough money to pay him. So I know he didn't have a grappling guy. So how could anyone confidently say that Jon Jones is going to beat him? Now, on the flip side, anybody who's like, oh my God, Francis is going to destroy Jon Jones. How could you possibly say that? No one's ever beat Jon Jones. The correct answer is you don't have any idea what's going to happen. You could say, I think this is how it would go, but anybody who's like, this guy would destroy that guy, what are you talking about? There is no possible way that if you know this sport that you could possibly say confidently which way that fight's going to go. It's not possible. You couldn't. So don't say it anymore because it just exposes you as not knowing what the fuck you're talking about. Anyway, I love you guys. Peace out. More to come today. Bye.